made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 520 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Therese Perdedjian. And if you want to hear about conscious health practitioners, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today we have Therese Perdedjian on, coming in from Australia. And I think this is going to be super dynamic. There's going to be a lot of stories that we discuss. One of the main takeaways I want everybody to learn today from our conversation is chiropractic and community. Maybe not just chiropractic and community, but maybe the community of where you reside. I think there's a lot of things that we're going to discuss today that's going to really open a lot of people's eyes, ears, and hearts to where the profession is today, where it's going. But before we do all that, I want everybody to know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? And by the way, this is episode 520. So I've been saying this for quite some time. We protect freedom of speech. We've never censored anyone. I think that that's a highly valuable aspect of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Number 2, we believe in family health freedom and medical freedom. We believe everybody should have freedom of choice. So valuable. Doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter what your color, creed, or religious backgrounds are. It's really important. You should have the say as to how you take care of you and your family. Then we do protect B.J. Palmer's Sacred Trust. If you don't know what that is, go and search for B.J. Palmer's last words. You're going to learn so much more about chiropractic than you ever could have guessed that existed out there. Then we do support subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that being said, Dr. Therese, welcome to the show.
James, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the acknowledgement. The reason I'll just tell everybody, just the reason I started this was to tell chiropractic stories. It was never to make me the focal point. So a lot of times people start podcasts because they want to share their importance with the world. I wanted to share something that was important with the world.
Chiropractic it is.
Yeah. And I think that it needs more heroism, and it needs more heroes in it, and it needs people to do it for the right reasons. And I believe that that's the message behind our show, and the ethos in the programming is I get to tell your story. And I know that this is possibly a reintroduction to people in your life, your friends, family, colleagues, patients, practice members, people in your community. And they're going to say, whoa, so that's who she is. So without any further, let's tell your chiropractic story. And how did you get into this beautiful profession?
My chiropractic story. Would you believe I had no idea what chiropractors did, James?
I would believe it.
Yeah, no idea. And had a friend at the time, and I said, what does your dad do? She said, he's a chiropractor. Why don't you book yourself in and see? I went, okay. And so I actually booked myself in, like really just booked myself in. And I went to my initial consult, and it was so amazing because like he's just sitting there and you know, we're discussing my health, we're discussing my body. He's saying these things. He's like, oh, you've got a sweet tooth. I'm like, how does he know I have like the biggest sweet tooth in history? Like, how does he know? And then he's like, oh, you know, your digestive system's like this. I'm like, how does he know? And then he's like, oh, you'd be quite sensitive skin. And I'm like, I'm sitting there And I'm like, wow, this guy's a real doctor. Like, that's what was going through my head, my really young mind, right? Anyway, and then right then and there, so then he gives me my first ever adjustment. Now, this man was a master at what he did, okay? And I'm so blessed to have had this experience. I get in, so lying, and then he puts this gentle touch on my neck. And then I have this realization, okay? I have this realization that I'm responsible for my body, I'm responsible for my thoughts, and I'm responsible for my life. So I get up. I've got this silly, like the most ridiculous smile on my face. Like, I'm just, something in me just changed. It woke up, I tell you. And it felt like I was walking on water. And I was like, this is a gift, you're passing it on. Like, I just had this clear message that this is a gift, that you're passing it on. And then I was like, where do you learn this? And so he says Palmer College, right? So I'm in Australia and I'm like, oh. So I'm like, I have to make my way to the United States, because I didn't think you'd learn it anywhere else, right? Anyway, and then a bit of research, I found out that there's universities in Australia that taught it. But I remember thinking, why didn't my mum tell me about chiropractic? Like, why didn't my dad tell me? Like, how come no one goes to a chiropractor? Like, hello. So that was my chiropractic story. And then I never went back, by the way, for another adjustment. Like, I needed no care plan. I went straight into university. And what was interesting was, can I share this bit?
Of course.
What was interesting was I wanted to hear scientifically the wisdom that I experienced in my body. Like, I needed to actually understand. And I thought I was going to go and listen to the healing arts, right? And like, I wanted to learn everything that I could of, all the natural stuff that the body did. And chiropractic school has its education, which I think is awesome, because it allows us to be clinically trained. And however, I was still looking for something. I was like, so I went and did a lot more further education. If anyone ever came out, I would go and listen, because I was just grasping on that to really understand, what did I experience? Like, what happened? What woke up within me? And then I got that when Sue Brown came out. And that was really, really cool. So then kind of, went on that trajectory.
So the BJ Palmer once said, once you get the big idea, all else follows. And I think that first adjustment might have been your big idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned Sue Brown.
Yeah.
Let's talk BGI for a little bit, because I think it's something that makes you unique in this world. And I don't really know a whole lot about it, except for there's some ancient wisdom with the geometry of our bodies, and chiropractors can help take disconnect out of the field of somebody's body when it comes to this energetic work, and reconnect people. Is that right?
Correct. So I'm like, it's such a big thing. So I'm like, yeah. So I think, can we take it back? Can I just take it back a little bit? And it's
Sure.
like, if you look at the word chiropractic, it's actually a loose term, right? It can mean anything from the earth to like such a physical thing, to anything of like this spiritual realm, okay? Like, and anything in between that, right? It's a spectrum. Most things are a spectrum, right? So it's this big spectrum. And for me, I felt like I had experienced all that in this one most beautiful adjustment. And this practitioner was an SOT practitioner, right? So in my head, I'm like, SOT, that's it, chiropractic, I'm sold kind of thing. But what I really enjoyed, so one of the things with biogeometric integration is it's looking at living things. The geometry we talk about is the sacred geometry, which then is actually acknowledging that, there's all these patterns that are repeating. And, on a macroscopic or a microscopic level, we know this, the patterns that we do day to day, or whatever it is, or the patterns we see in nature, the patterns we see in the body, how we act, the behaviors we do, the relationships that we have, those sort of patterns. And then integration is, seeing everything as a whole. So there's this big interconnectedness, and it's when we're adjusting someone, how is it that we can see the potential and this interconnectedness so they can actually see the potential in themselves? And so I think that for me was so profound. But before, when you were sharing the idea of subluxation, Sue had her definition of, she's got some really awesome papers out there. And one is subluxation, the potential energy theory of subluxation. And when she talks about that, she acknowledges that, yes, we're a biomechanical being, you know, we're experiencing life in this physical body. We've got our emotions. She also then goes into the electromagnetic field. And I'm like, that is really, really cool, because how many other people actually talk about the electromagnetic field? Not many. And also, I also see the adjustment, James, as like a metaphor to actually describe the things that we can't describe, if that makes sense. Like the things that are not palpable with our touch, but are palpable on other sensory perceptions. So
yeah, based on what you're sharing with me, I'll just give you my first BGI experience.
Go for it.
It's probably in 2017. I was down in New Mexico, and I was adjusted, and somebody did the BGI work to me. I don't know how what you phraseology you use about it, but somebody did the BGI.
They applied the concepts, James. Yes.
They applied the concepts of BGI to me. It was the first time I ever cried from an adjustment. And I was weeping, like emotionally weeping, because of what had been the layer. I mean, they explained to me it was like they removed a layer, but we could go deeper. And I was like, well, that was pretty intense. But I think that they did a great service to me, because ever since then, I never went back to that place. I never went back to that place that when they applied BGI to me, I
applied the concepts.
I never went back. I never went back. And actually I healed a lot from it. And I don't share a lot of personal stuff on the show, but it was about abandonment. My dad left me when I was 5. I really don't tell these stories, but my father left me when I was 5 years old. And I always had like this, like abandonment, like tendency inside of me. And ever since then, I never looked back at that. It really like made me feel that part of like my life started to get some healing. And I think that I learned that day that chiropractic can be osseous or it can be energetic. And I think that what I learned that day was really what chiropractors say that they do. They help with 3 things: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And I think the greatest subluxation to most people is energetic. And then they get tension patterns, as you said, they get patterns, but sometimes it becomes tension patterns. And then they get wound up, and that sucks, and that's painful. So a lot of times people don't know how to unmanifest what they cling to. And somebody else that's really good at this stuff needs to help decode that and allow the body to remove that mental subluxation or the spiritual subluxation or the generational trauma, you know, the stuff that's like embedded inside of us, the identity subluxation. And I think that when a chiropractor applies it the right way, it could be a Gonstead move. It could be a TRT instrument. It could be a diversified. It could be the flying sevens for all I care. But when somebody gets the chance to like actually receive care, it changes the whole dynamic of the person that's the receiver. Period. Just like yours. It sent you to chiropractic school.
Keep talking, James. Yes. No, I tell you, it's interesting. I think if someone comes and I never ever see them, but then they're inspired and they go on their trajectory of what it is, I'm like, my job done. Period. I'd rather see someone once, only ever once in my life. That meant I did my job, than continually seeing them.
Well, chiropractic is business also. Sid Williams would always say, you need to have your business hand over here and your adjusting hand over here.
Mm.
And I think that if anybody knows who Sid Williams is, he was the founder of Life University, Life College of Chiropractic down in Marietta, Georgia, which is now the largest chiropractic college on planet Earth.
Mm.
So kudos to Sid for creating that movement for chiropractic to protect the sacred trust and pass the torch to the future. So I think that he did a great job. But when you think about chiropractic becoming business, what would you recommend to practitioners to build a practice?
This is I actually grew up in a family business.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So at a young age, all I ever did was family business. And my first degree was actually a business degree. And I majored in marketing because I thought I was going to go and open up all these franchises, it was going to be all that. And then I had my first year of adjustment. So what was interesting was, so I'm just sharing this so I can get on to I'm prefacing my, my answer. When I got into chiropractic, I need to know how a chiropractic business functions. So I was a CA for 5 years, and the practitioner was amazing. She would send me everywhere for CA training. Like I went to the States 3 times as a chiropractic student to actually learn CA training. And then I did, practitioner training. So I knew how to handle the front end of the management side. And then when I became a clinician, then I had to figure out how to actually, do all the clinical side. And what set me up was actually really understanding how important the front end was, because me as a clinician, I can do my job, right? And so the first thing was being comfortable with a small business and the ups and the downs that it goes through. Like we lived in a very seasonal location. So, seeing it, quite hard where this is the money that we have for the whole year. It's like, oh, okay. So you save or you invest or whatever it is that you do. But coming back to this, your question specifically was, can you ask the question specifically again?
Yeah.
If you have it down?
What advice would you give to someone to get more new patients and convert them to care?
Yeah. Cool. So, and this is like about where you are in your practice and how many years you've been out, how dedicated you are in the field of your care. And I've done them all where I'll be like, say to someone, hey, come back when you feel like you need to come back, or come back in 2 weeks, right? I've done it where you need to see me twice a week for the next, 10 years. I've done packages. I've done a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things that I want to tell you when it comes to conversion is really detach from actually converting, because you don't need to convert anyone. If you've done your job as a clinician, they will convert then and there however they want to convert, right? It doesn't mean it's your style of converting, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you want to make profit, and if it depends what your definition of actual profit is, okay, just because there's money coming in doesn't mean it's profit. So let's say the definition of profit is, this is how much cash I actually have to play with. And, I've got no more expenses, no more overheads, nothing. Like this is literally, I can do whatever I want with this money. I can burn it, hell, if I want to burn it, right? And so if we're talking about just profit, then charge what is actually you're supposed to charge, not what you think or what the mainstream is or what other practitioners like. Charge your actual worth. Like know what it is that you bring and charge that. And then when you've got all those ducks aligned, you'll actually see it's quite easy. You're going to get very easy referrals. You're going to say to your clients, hey, I do want to work with you, or you're not the best person I actually want to work with. So I think it really depends what are you converting to? What do you want them to convert to? Do you want them to convert to this big premise of chiropractic? Do you want them to convert so you can get money? Do you want them to convert for whatever? Tell them. Well, be honest.
I think when you get clear with how you want to practice and the model you want to live in, then at that point you can, I think it's called the law of peripheral returns. When you know what you want, that comes to you.
Yeah.
When you know what you don't want, it stays away. And I think that when people understand that and they get clear, really, really clear with how they want to take care of people, those are the cases and those are the people that show up to them.
You know, well said. And that was a 12-year journey for me, James. So, you know, for some, it's really clear. For me, it was actually a 12-year journey to really go, wow. And I was playing around. What do I like? What do I not like? You know, wow. So, yeah, but spot on. Do you know I have, I don't know if I shared with you, I founded this group. It's called Conscious Health Practitioners. And I have a 6-week training on that, really to go, who are you and what is it that you want to bring? What world do you want to live in? Who do you want to attract? And it goes through all that. And I just really love how you actually just gave that synopsis just then. It was perfect. I'm going to take it.
I like to speed stuff up for people.
Yeah, I'm taking that if that's okay.
For sure.
At the end of it.
So let's talk a bit more personal and let's talk about how are you taking care of yourself? I mean, I know chiropractors provide service. They take care of people. They're working as many hours or as little hours as they want to. But when it comes to you and your personal life, what are you doing to stay healthy? What are your favorite activities, and what does your family do?
I really like this question, and it's interesting because I think where I live now has made me really just to kind of go inward. And so one of the things I really do for my health is actually go inward and just be. So it's not to get distracted by TV or news or anything like that. So there's a lot of that that's been cut out of my life. So if you ask me what's been going on in the world, I will tell you, I actually really don't know. And sometimes I'm like, you know, it's a double-edged sword because sometimes it's really cool. Like I'm like, I don't need to know that. And sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I missed that one. I should have kept up with that, right? So the first one is cutting out distraction. The second thing, this is going to sound really, really random, but a cat came into my life. And so having that has just been, I cannot explain it in many ways because I'm not an actual animal person per se, okay, let alone cats. Like if you would have said, Therese, you'd be with a cat, I'd be like, hell no, ew. But this cat comes into my life. And what's really interesting, it's just how profound, you know, I can't even explain it, but it's like, you know, you get to show your love to someone. And this thing, it's like, it's unlimited. And so that's the only way I can explain it. I don't have more words to it at the moment, but that has been quite profound. And that's actually quite healing to go, wow, I can actually show this love, however way or form it comes, right? It's not going to be going, oh, I don't like it that way, or don't do this, or don't do that. Or, you know, there's no words that are said back. It's just, if they don't like it, they'll walk away and you're like, oh yeah, oh, okay, cool. And then they'll come back, right? So there's that. When it comes to the physical body, there's I go through phases. So this is really interesting. I really go through phases of what my body's telling me. So it's actually listening to my body. So I go through phases where I do stretch and tone classes. And it's like, right, we're stretching. And I haven't done that in the last year. And I'm like, oh, I think my body's telling me it's time to get back into it. Right? So it's not just doing it for the sake of doing it. It's, oh, I think my body needs this now. I'm primarily vegetarian at home. And then when I go out, I'll be like, give me meat, right? I need meat right now. And it's like, oh, okay. So my body, like, it's like, okay, what do I need to eat? What is care for me right now, right? So there's all those different waves. And at the end of the day, to complete it, it's like, what do I need? What do I need for me? What do I need right now? So they're the things I do to actually take health. I actually deleted all the apps off my phone. That was another one. And then I reinstall them and then I delete them again. And then I go, no, I don't need that one. So, you know, it's where am I at? But I don't punish myself.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle. I call that a digital detox. Yeah.
I do digital detoxes, and then
Most of us are saturated with too much. And I think I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they said that the amount of stress that we incur in 1 month of life, like our grandfathers and grandmothers and great grandfathers and great grandmothers, they incurred that stress over a lifetime. So we've evolved into these adaptable people, but we're constantly bombarded with distractions, and we're constantly attached to something. You know, my friend, I'll just go on a little tangent, but my friend called the cell phone a Ouija board, because a Ouija board is a yes board. It'll tell you whatever you want to hear. It'll tell you whatever you want the answer to be. And that's how I look at the cell phone. It's the yes device. It will tell us whatever we want it to tell us. And if we don't want it to tell us, we stay away from it. So I think that it has a lot of power. There's a lot that you shared with, like, removing the connection. Yeah, I think it's healthy for people to digitally detox from things that demand the attention. And it becomes very unhealthy because we lose connection with having coffee with friends. We lose the connection of taking a hike with somebody. We lose the connection of being present when we're eating with somebody. You know, so I think that energetically, you're spot on. Like, it's got to be managed better, and that is mental health. And that's something that I can really, appreciate about your answer.
Do you know what's really cool is living somewhere that has no phone reception, and so no one can get to you anyway. My internet reception is really, really bad, so it means I can't. My emails I check every other day or every third day, and first it was really hard though, James. Like, for 2 months I had nothing. But then they were if I look back, I'm like, I am so grateful that I had those 2 months, because it made me prioritize how I actually then engage in however I do engage.
Did you find yourself reading more books?
Okay, see those books? Can you see the bookshelf?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 of those. I've read, and I read them back to front. Like, I read, everything, even to the index. I've read 2 of those shelves. I've actually read front to back. And I think I'm doing, when it comes to not audiobooks, but actual reading. And I'm probably one of the slowest readers, by the way, because my comprehension isn't that great. Wasn't that great. It's better now. About 17 to 18 books a year. And that, I can't tell you how huge, that's huge for me. So yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So a plug for Arno.
Oh, yes, I've seen this book.
I just got the book 2 days ago, and I'm into the second chapter. Yeah. And Arno Bernier, thank you for creating this book. I've already feel enlightened. He signed it, hand delivered it to me at the Sherman College this past weekend.
Oh, yes.
And nice. I can't say enough for people to actually picking up something physical and actually spending time with the text and getting to know it. There's something really, really powerful about not listening to something and not watching a video on something, but actually taking your time with it. It's a very slow method, as you said, but it's also the most fulfilling method. The past 2 years, I've read a daily devotional every day. Okay. And I think that when people really want to get to know themselves, they have to get to know slowing down enough to integrate text to eye to knowledge. And I think 17 books is really amazing. The most I did was last year. I read 22.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
So we're probably going to go over time, but I want to get to make sure that we do touch on the questions, because as I heard your reverence at the beginning of the show, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was community. And I would say, what are your favorite ways to stay connected to your local community?
Let me just go back. And when you say local community, so I moved where I moved to 3 years ago now in May. May the 15th will mark 3 years.
Wow.
And I moved on a community by the river. And so what is interesting is I knew a lot of people would talk about community, and I never experienced it. And I thought it was like a bit of a, oh yeah, that's just people saying stuff. Like no one really gets it, right? And just backtrack, I came from a very big family where both my mum's side and my dad's side would get together every weekend. Like it was just like one big thing. So for me, family was like the start of a community. Like how they interacted was how I envisioned community to be, right? Anyway, so I get to the river, and what's interesting is you actually need everyone. Okay, you see what everyone's role here is, and it is such an eclectic mix of people, right? You don't get a choice. You don't get a choice of who comes and saves you when you need, like when you need help. Like, you know, when it's like, this is life-threatening, I need help. You don't get a choice when, like, so there's a snake that lives on my roof, that comes down on my deck, okay? I don't get it. Like, it's like one of my neighbors will come. I just need a shout out. I'm like, hey, whoever come will come. When there's something happening with my boat on the river, you just send out a text, and whoever comes will actually just come. Now, all these different personalities, okay, some of them I'm like, hell no, I wouldn't even say hello to you. Like we would not interact in the city on a day-to-day basis. Like, you know, our lives would not interact, period. But what I understood was, wow, a community is really seeing what each person brings and why they are so important, right? And so, you know, we go from the high-end executives to, you know, the people who are in the medical field, who are surgeons, to the producers, film producers, all the people, to the other end who are recluse, you know, who don't want to know, who've been incarcerated many times, who you don't want anyone, you know, just so you've got that big spectrum. And so it's really interesting in how you actually start to communicate in different ways. And, you know, communicate and community both have the commune word in it, right? And so it's like, wow, community for me, local community is when I'm communing, when I'm with you, I'm actually with you no matter who you are. And it's not an effort. Like I don't have to go out of my way to actually then, you know, be nice, or I don't want anything from them. But what I do know is I am there for you when you need, and you are there for me when I need, if that all works out.
Chiropractic principles. The body needs nothing extra in it. It simply needs no interference.
Yeah.
When we clear up the interference, the body is a self-regulating, self-healing organism, like relationships. When they get clear, once again, then the major premise is connection. And it's always to do the right thing for people. And if people keep doing that, we're more alike than we are different. And that's what resonates with me about the chiropractic space. Is
we're more alike than we're different.
We are more alike than we are different, regardless if we're a farmer, regardless if we're the producer. Or
can we just take that in for a moment? I just like say it again.
We're more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the download that God gives me, is this skill to listen, and then to make the moment, to tie it all together, and to be poignant with it. And that's really the secret behind this whole thing, is I get a chance to hear and listen and then recall it. And that's the beautiful thing about journalism. And when it's authentic, this is what happens.
Mm.
We're more alike than we are different. And here's another chiropractic one. Keep smiling. You know, I think that people don't know this, but they used to incarcerate chiropractors for practicing without a license. And their hunger strike was to keep smiling, no matter how they persecuted you, no matter what they put upon you, no matter the sentencing, no matter the fines, no matter the fees, keep smiling.
Mm.
And then we do stand on the shoulders of giants, because those are the people that gave you the ability to have a license today. So we do need to protect the sacred trust.
Thank you. Just say that again. Those are the people that allowed you to have a license today. Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm.
But their mantra was to keep smiling,
Mm.
no matter how much they grinded those people down. And actually what they did is they adjusted the guards in jail. They adjusted the judges. They were adjusting the other inmates.
Of course they were.
And that's why BJ Palmer said if we could adjust everybody in all the asylums, we'd set them all free. Because it was never about a physical subluxation.
The freedom is in the mind.
So as we continue,
I'm like, keep going.
We're down the road a little bit. We have 3 more questions left.
Okay, let's go.
20 years from now, where will the chiropractic profession be, and where do you see it going yourself?
I must say, I don't know. I'd have to sit and really think about this one, because I want to say I actually don't know. Like, I don't have a I've got nothing there for you, James. It's not and I don't think my brain thinks in that way, which is really interesting.
Well, I look at it as a fair answer, but I look at it from this perspective. If we don't take action now, we'll settle for nothing later. And chiropractors are going, if they don't stand together and become more unified, then we're going to have to create a campaign to save the chiropractors, kind of like an endangered species.
Okay.
So we have to keep the principles alive and the philosophy alive and the art and the science alive within the profession. We can't allow outside interests to come in and to manipulate the languaging, the philosophy, and the education. We need to keep it chiropractic. And I don't want to judge people for how they practice or what they choose to do, what therapies they do, but chiropractic is chiropractic is chiropractic. And that's my takeaway when I've done over 1,200 interviews and asked people this stuff, and somebody comes to me and they're like, I don't have an answer for that. I'm like, well, okay, I'll fill the blank for you.
Here's your response. Well, I think you made me realize, I think, when you're in it and sometimes you don't see. And so as you were sharing, I'm like, oh, wow, this is what I actually do. Like, I actually go to, say, spiritual networks and I share about chiropractic. And most people were like, oh, I didn't know chiropractic was that. And I share from my aspect, right? I share using seminars. I share, leading BGI in Australia. That's pretty freaking awesome, right? And I do my little bit in that. When it comes to workshops for my clients, my workshops are called Sacred Healing. And I get in there and I'm like, well, this is my definition of chiropractic. You guys want to know this? This is what I'm here. This is what I'm here. So I do my bit. And I think what's actually really exciting. So if I say, here we go, James, I've got the answer. Are you ready? What I'm sharing in 20 years' time is practitioners being able to express how it is that they actually practice and not be scared. There we go. Freedom of speech, as you said.
Unity through diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So as we march down towards the
Yeah.
wrap of the show, 2 more
Okay.
questions. Who are some of your heroes, and name one person you would love to sit and talk with for an hour?
So, it's a lot of heroes. There's a lot of inspirational artists, or there's a lot of artists that inspire me. James Turrell being one with the light. There's Iris Apfel and her fashion. They're quite eclectic mix. It's not just one. I don't have like one stream. There's a lot. And if you say, who's the one person who would you sit down? It's really interesting. You were sharing about your dad before and the abandonment, and before you were sharing about your mama too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my heroes are my mum and dad, as corny as cringy that may sound. And sometimes I don't feel like I give that enough time just to actually sit and be with them. Like, it's easy for me to be with others. And I'm actually going to say, so I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say actually sit with my mum and dad for an hour each. That's 2 hours, dude. And just be with them.
You know how to do that?
How?
Do what they like to do.
Yeah.
You
Eating.
don't
There's
have
only
to
so much eating I can do, James.
You don't have to like it.
Yeah.
Just do what they like to do.
I would say it's actually how I interpret that question is really like get into, like, really listen and be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've heard all the answers to this, and
Yeah.
chiropractically speaking,
Yeah.
I would like to meet chiropractor number 1.
You'd meet Dee Dee. Yeah, I would actually meet Dee Dee's, I think it was the 3rd wife. I would actually like to meet the 3rd wife. I think it's the 2nd or the 3rd. Yeah.
I would like to meet chiropractor number 1, and I'd like to ask him, why Davenport, Iowa?
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because that being my hometown,
Yeah.
it's this little gem on the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
That the only reason it's famous for anything is because of chiropractic. And I think he came there because of the energetic flow of the river. It's the only place in the United States on the Mississippi River where the river flows east to west.
Oh.
So there's some energetic resonance with Davenport, Iowa, when it comes from the river. So maybe that's why he chose a place, because he was a magnetic healer. Yeah. And he could see the field of energy. And maybe Davenport, Iowa is just special to him. Don't know, but I'd like to know that. And then we're going to close.
Okay.
Tell us a chiropractic miracle story. Send us off.
Oh, there are so many, James. Okay, let me just sit with two. Just give me one moment, because I'm like, which one's actually going to filter through? So, okay. So here's one. So this is the one I'm going to share. And so it was a little baby who came in, so around probably about 9 to 10 months or so. And it was interesting because the parents did not believe in, no, I don't want to say believe. The parents were quite, what's the word?
Reserved.
Quite reserved. Thank you. That's a good word. Quite reserved. And, sometimes the perception is when you do say chiropractic, they just think a visceral crack, and it's like, oh, well, it's like one tiny dot of it, and it depends how one practices. Anyway, the baby came, like they brought the baby in, and I would adjust it, but like my adjustment is so light, you'd be like, are you doing anything? Like, what are we paying you for? Like, sometimes you're not even touching the baby, right? So I'm working with the baby, and the interesting thing was, the baby would always kind of go. So I always ask the baby, like, do I have permission to touch you? Do I have permission to do this? never, ever, ever once had permission to touch the baby's neck. Never. And I'm like, okay, cool. You don't want me to touch your neck. I get it. And then kind of like didn't really go to the cranium, but it'd be light touches here or there. And then, I'd do the rest. And what was interesting was the mum could see that the baby was just getting stronger and stronger. And so she'd bring her in again going, look, I don't know what it is that you're doing. Like, it doesn't look like that you're doing anything. And, that'd have to be a good, 5 to 10 minute chat, yeah, like this is what's happening, if I can break it down in the nervous system. So I'd share all that. Anyway, the original reason why the mother brought the baby in, because this one eye was actually quite a lazy eye. And she's just like, look, I don't know, but, seeking everything, just, is this something you can help? I'm like, I don't know. Let me see. After the first adjustment, the baby's head had a flat head actually plumped out, right?
Pun intended. Let me see.
Good pickup. So then the baby's head plumped out and she's like, what did you do? Right? Okay. Anyway, so then saw that the baby's core was stronger. Again, you're not doing anything. What are you doing? And they had, this is pre-scheduled. They actually had to scan the baby's head to see what was actually going on with the eye, right? It was just one of those scans that you do. And anyway, so I adjusted this baby 5 times, okay? Never ever once touched the neck, and only went where the baby instructed me to go, and you could drastically see the improvements. The eye would get better, but then, after 2 or 3 days, it'd get lazy again. Anyway, they do the scan, and James, they come back and it's supposed to be just a head scan, but they get C1 and C2 in the actual scan. And what they find is that the baby has a tumor at the C1, C2 level. And then they're like, oh, so guess what? Guess who they come back to? They come back to me. And I'm just like, okay. And at this time, they're like, I don't want you to touch my baby, but is it going to be okay? And I'm like, I don't have to touch your baby, but maybe if I adjust you and I adjust the dad, right? Maybe you guys may be prepared, because they were going to go into, like, within a week, the baby was going into surgery to actually remove this tumor. I'm like, maybe I can adjust you two. Yeah. Anyway, adjusted mum and dad, and they knew why they were getting adjusted. They weren't getting adjusted because their back hurt. They weren't getting adjusted because, something was out. They were getting adjusted so they could be emotionally stronger for when they actually went when they went into the surgery. And so for me, that's actually a chiropractic miracle story, is having 2 people so reserved, not wanting to touch some of the things. Like, as you said before, someone touched you applying the concepts of BDI and they cried, right? And so this is, for me, the miracle story is going to a depth, or going to a place where they didn't even want to go at all, and they went there.
Powerful. So in closing, is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you would like to share with our audience?
I want to show you something. Can I quickly show you something?
Of course.
Okay, one moment. So you have expect miracles.
Yeah.
And this is the one little thing I have on my wall. It's expect a miracle. And these are cards that was the late John Hinwood would actually distribute these. So when he gave that to me, I've got it. This is over probably about 17 years old, I tell you, and it just sits up on my wall. But no, that's all I wanted to share with you.
Expect a miracle.
Yeah.
And if people want to learn more about you, or connect with you, or work with you, where can we send them to?
You can send them to either drtherese.com.au, or you can send them to conscious health practitioners if anyone wants to learn anything when it comes to how to communicate in childbirth education. And this is actual childbirth education, and we're looking at the spiritual aspect of birth in addition to the mechanical aspect, how to communicate that to your clients. That's where you can, in addition to, I call it the personal momentum accelerator, which is flagged as the Patient Management Accelerator. But yeah, they can get in contact, or if anyone wants to do a BGI seminar, there's some places that you can reach out. You can connect.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today on episode 520. And thank you for offering some resources for people to be in touch with you. And let's just keep on supporting this beautiful profession that we call chiropractic. And I'm going to close out by telling everyone, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next show. Thank you so much, Dr. Therese.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.